Hi, I'm Pete Kennedy, and you're listening to A Shark's Perspective.
Welcome back, and thank you for joining A Shark's Perspective. I'm Kenneth Kinney, but friends call me Shark. I'm a keynote speaker, strategist, a shark diver, host of this show, and your chief shark officer. Would you rather be an astronaut or an influencer? It's a question that continues to show how much young people want to be influencers. Not sure about me, I have way too much growing up to do. But more brands are leveraging influencer marketing more than ever today as the industry continues to grow and surpass $17 billion a year in marketing spend. And while brands today continue to churn out a lot of content, and often while trying to reach a very broad demographic, studies over and over show that influencer marketing content can more effectively target an audience with more engagement. Technologies are continuing to advance to help marketers better plan campaigns, maximize workflow efficiency, and get better measurement and ROI, but you've still got to find and contract with the right influencer. The question is, how do you simplify the complex execution of an influencer marketing campaign? Peter Kennedy is the founder and president of Tagger, a data-driven influencer marketing platform. And on this episode, we'll discuss the state of influencer marketing, how social media usage during COVID skyrocketed and helped the industry, TikTok's everywhere in SoCal, the definition of a high-value influencer, the complex execution of campaigns, measuring what works, especially for performance marketers, technology and advances in influencer marketing, the need to create content all the time, raising kids in a social media influencer world, mentoring advice to upcoming influencers, Jamie Dimon and Charli D'Amelio, the Kardashians and the Kajis, losing too many oceanic white tips every year, TikTok and Instagram, surfing spots, and a lot more. So let's tune in to an influential entrepreneur and an influential shark on this episode of A Shark's Perspective. Pete, welcome to A Shark's Perspective. Would you please give us a brief overview of your background and career to date? How does a guy go from an Indiana Jesuit preparatory school to being the CEO of a California influencer media brand?
That's a long journey.
I did my homework.
High school.
Yeah.
That's going back to high school. So I'm a serial entrepreneur. I've done everything from the .com travel boom, starting an online travel company back in the .com era. I've done water sports complexes around the United States. I started a medical device company that we sold to Boss Instruments. I started an influencer marketing company called Tagger Media, and everywhere in between. So it's not a very efficient way to start businesses. Typically, people become experts into one thing, and then they hone that craft, and then they start a company based off of that. I take the opposite approach. I go into industries where I know nothing about anything, and then I try to start a company there.
You zig and you zag and then you zug and zog, whatever you keep.
Yeah, and I also think that you come in with a fresh perspective, and you don't have all these kind of preconceived notions weighing you down. You can come in here and you might have a little more excitement about the industry as well, because you haven't been in that for a long time. So
yeah, if you came in with 20 years at an agency and claimed to be an expert in influencer marketing, it would just poison, not having anything fresh to think about. So I agree with it. You're in SoCal, right? Santa Monica area.
Yep.
So it must be weird going on the pier a lot of days where it just seems normal anywhere where someone breaks out into making a TikTok video or that perfect Instagram picture all the time. You must see that a lot.
Everywhere. It doesn't matter if you're at the pier, if you're walking down the street, constantly you're in a parking garage, and on the top level of parking garages, there's always cars parked, and there's someone taking a picture of someone else in some crazy pose. And, you just see it now and you know what it is, and it's no big deal.
Yeah. If somebody's sitting in their car filming something, I mean, if they're talking it, you would have thought in the old days they were, going crazy. Now they're just recording a TikTok for the rest of the world. So it's, everything is a video for social anymore.
Once in a while, I have 5 kids, and so you have this kind of parent view of things once in a while. But sometimes you'll see people like walking on a very high structure, and you want to like stop and be like, "Don't do that. It's not a good call. It's going to be good for the gram, but it's not good for your life. So get down." But I embarrass my children once in a while when I do that. So.
Oh yeah. Well, so the state of the state. Let's talk about the influencer marketing world. The market obviously looks good. It's continuing to grow. I saw some stats not that long ago. It was, roughly not even a decade ago. It was like at $1 billion, but it's now 16, 17 billion now. Do you think this is more of a thing today because we've got a more strategic focus for it because of more social media platforms like TikTok that have exploded? Or is it something where people are looking for non-celebrity celebrities to tout their products and services? Or is it something else? Why do you think the continued explosion, which has been pretty rapid?
I think that all the things you mentioned are contributing factors to it. I think the largest contributing factor, though, is consumer behavior. We spend a lot of time on social media. And why do we do this? Because it's entertaining. It's a way to connect with friends. It's a way to learn about products I want to buy. And so I think this consumer behavior has really driven the need for influencer marketing. When you look at COVID, for example, the increase in online consumption of content just exploded. I mean, we propelled ourselves 5 years into the future in terms of just e-commerce based off of COVID. And even if we drop back a few percentage points, as people go back to their real world, it's still an enormous increase in consumption of online content, social media, and e-commerce. So I think consumer behavior is the number one thing. And then wherever there is consumers, there is, marketers that are going to go there. So even as we start to look at other new social media platforms that are coming up, like Be Real, for example, there's a lot of users there. Marketers are going to go there. And I think it's really interesting when marketers take a chance and they start to try to buy some media on these new platforms. The economies of scale are incredible. I mean, you can get really, really inexpensive inventory. And so smart marketers go there early on, but the measurement's not always there, so it's hard to measure it. But yeah, I think all the things you're mentioning, but it's consumer behavior. We love social media. We love to be there.
So ballpark idea, the demographics for us on influencers, at least what's successful. What's a ballpark percentage of, what we think of as, say, young females that fit the stereotype? Is that 60%? Is it 40%? Do you find it to be mostly males, mostly females? What's sort of the mix of demographics that you sort of see if you kind of had to highlight what buckets they would fall into?
Yeah, well, we look at data from our existing clients, and really, who are they trying to go after, right? That's really what you're doing when you're hiring influencers. You're going after specific audiences. Early on, it was very travel, beauty, fashion, so it was very skewed towards women. Now we have B2B companies, tech companies who are our clients. They are looking for tech influencers, tech decision makers who influence a lot of people. We're working with healthcare companies who are looking for nurses, or they're looking for oncologists. So the group of audiences that you're trying to attract via influencer marketing has increased dramatically. Still, I would say that the easiest market to go after is, young women, right? Young men are easy to find as well. But what's really interesting, what I get more passionate about is these niche audiences that are, very specific to an industry or very specific to really to an occupation. Yeah, so it spreads it. I mean, I think it's like who you're looking for right now. Is it women, men, oncologists, whatever it is? It's like everyone in the world now is using influencers to tap into the right audience.
So if they're looking for like a keynote speaker that loves to swim with sharks and podcasts and stuff like that, where to go.
I know where to go.
Yeah. And I think it's always interesting. There's a poll just a few years ago, and I believe it was like a Harris poll covering the US and parts of Europe and China also. And it was 8 kids. I believe it was 8 to 12. I read that 29% of them wanted to be an influencer or a YouTuber more than an astronaut. And I still feel that of that 29%, probably 10% of those wanted to go to the moon just to get the perfect selfie, if anything. But, with somebody that's got 5 kids who's also running an influencer platform, where do you sort of try to figure this out on your own with how you educate your kids to not be the ones you're seeing at the pier and on the rooftops nonstop?
It's interesting. So it's based off the child, right? I have 5 children, from a college student down to twins who are 12 years old. One of my daughters actually wants to be an astronaut. She's a 14-year-old girl, and she wants to be an astronaut, right? She loves social media as well. So it's really what their passion is. I think my kids, for example, are pretty realistic in terms of what are the odds of becoming an influencer, and do they actually want to do that? You have to have some you have to have a need to create content all the time. I mean, my son, for example, is a great surfer and he loves to post content about surfing. He doesn't do it enough in order to create an audience because it's a full-time job. And he has so many other interests. He loves lacrosse, he loves school, he loves travel, he loves all these different things. So you have to be hyper focused into one thing, and you have to be that type of person. The stat I read was not about astronauts. It was, would you rather be an actor or an athlete or a social media influencer? And the numbers were outrageous. Like when I was growing up, it was all about acting and athletes or singers. Now it's not that. So I don't know how you guide children. I think kids are just who they are and what they're exposed to. And, some people want to grow up and be, dive with sharks and do podcasts, and other people want to run influencer marketing companies. So
yeah, I think it's fascinating when you think too of the people that are the influencers maybe 20 years ago may have been a Fortune 500 CEO, that wrote a best-selling book. And now nobody's going to know who those people are anymore. I mean, if I said Jamie Dimon, one of the most influential business minds in the entire world, nobody would know who he is, but everybody knows who Jake Paul is and Charlie D'Amelio and all these other people. And it's fascinating that out on the street is one thing and out on Wall Street's another thing. It's just very interesting to see how brands are trying to connect with people anymore. So
yeah, it's interesting. I mean, there are CEOs who are, as big celebrities as, which you've never seen before, is it a function of the companies that they run, their total net worth, or just what they say in a provocative way on social media? I mean, if you think about some of these big time celebrity CEOs, they're typically pretty provocative people who get their. Jamie Dimon is not a very provocative person.
No, Gary Vaynerchuk, for example, everybody knows who he is, and his net worth compared to Jamie's is, I'm sure, infinitesimally smaller, but it's growing quickly.
But more entertaining to watch.
Yeah, much more.
And maybe that's the
So what to you is the definition of a great influencer, or at least a high value influencer at that? And does that fall in line with the education that brands and agencies typically have today? I mean, I know the industry as a whole is starting to adopt influencer marketing today, but whether or not they're really connecting with the right kinds is really, I know where your platform also helps guide people to find those right ones.
Definitely. I think the definition of an influencer and what I think is a great influencer has changed dramatically, since the days when you ran influencer campaigns back in 2012, right? Back then, it was like, how do I get the most scale? How do I hire the Kim Kardashians of the world where I'm getting, pretty much everyone in the world? I always say that when you're buying a Kardashian, you're buying the Super Bowl because everyone in the world follows them. And it's like buying the Super Bowl ad. Now, I think what makes a good influencer is a much more concentrated, much more predictable audience who's super engaged in what you do. So I would rather go out and hire, an audience that is primarily women who live on the west side of LA. They all shop at Goop and they all wear Golden Goose shoes. Okay, because they're much more predictable. I know they spend a lot of money on very high fashion. I know they shop at really nice stores, and I know that they drive really nice cars. Okay, so that niche is able to be identified. So if I'm an influencer and I can craft that more, listen, it's fine because there are some brands who want this kind of 50-50 male female and all over the board in terms of ages. It's a lot easier though as a media buyer to go and find an audience that is super concentrated because I can find a lot of those people and aggregate those audiences into larger groups. So when I'm looking at an influencer and their audience is 50% male, 50% female, that's great for big awareness campaigns where you're just like an everything brand. But now brands, whether it's Pepsi or whoever it is, they're not just like spreading their marketing dollars across every single demographic. They're being very specific, and with influencer marketing, you can do that. And so a good influencer is a pretty concentrated audience.
So who is coming to you for help, and what are they getting or not getting, for example, from other platforms? Is it the technology? Is it the right mix of influencers, or it's something else? I think basically when somebody in an agency or brand is looking for, this kind of technology, what differentiates yours?
Well, it's interesting. I think that lots of brands and agencies who come to us, they think about, I need to start with finding influencers for campaigns that I'm running. We start way before that because we track about 550,000 brands around the world. So now I can start to look at your industry, brands that you compete with, to understand what are they doing in market? How much earned media value are they placing in the market? What kind of influencers are they hiring? What audiences are they going after, right? So I can actually look at that. Now we can actually go, it's so cool. Not only can we understand your industry, Then we can go down onto the product level and the SKU level to understand, say you're a luxury goods company and you sell bags and sunglasses and fragrance and all these different things. I can actually look down into the product level to understand how do you compete within that market. What are your competitors doing? Who's spending the most in what territory around the world? So now we're seeing brands and agencies using our platform in order to move media dollars globally. I mean, it's just stuff like this, like I'm so excited about. So that's like, that's why we're kind of an always on platform, but you could spend all this time on research and strategy, and then you get to the point of selection of influencers, and then you get the workflow. And the workflow is, you need a perfect workflow because it's such a difficult media execution. It's not like going to Facebook and buying like an ad and being able to target 50 million people tomorrow. I mean, you have to go find these people, contract with them, send them proposals. It's a very long process that we do really easily. It really makes it the process easy to do. But I think it's the upfront strategy work and understanding what kind of media should you be placing in the market that really moves the needle for your campaigns.
What do you see successfully working with making that difficult execution work well?
Yeah, so it really is, what are your goals? When you outline your goals at the very beginning of the campaign, then you can really make sure that campaign is successful. You might be running an awareness campaign, which is completely fine. But now we're starting to see more and more of our clients, they sell, whether it's your own e-commerce site or you're selling on Amazon or you're selling on Walmart, we can start to have visibility into the sales on all these different platforms. Okay, especially with Shopify, that's an easy one as well. So for us, it's more about how do we make sure that when we're working with the right influencers, we're seeing the KPIs that are important to you. And again, if you're an e-commerce platform, how many sales did you do? What's the cost of this campaign compared to the sales lift? You might want to do brand lift studies too at the end of these campaigns. So, I think traditionally the measurement has been a little light on influencer marketing. And I think that's why performance marketers have always kind of leaned away from influencer marketing. But that has changed completely. I mean, we can measure these campaigns the same way you measure your other media mix, even more now. So yeah, it's interesting how it's kind of evolved.
I was driving lead gen for a company. We were working with an influencer who had no idea about attribution, produced some great content, but really didn't know where to gear the campaign. Very affordable, had a very engaged audience. But I found it very interesting that, a lot of the performance marketers, that's old hat for us with trying to connect the dots to see where it worked and make the CFO happy. And then sometimes you go to the influencers and they don't, on their end, necessarily know how to execute the media across the board well and tie the engagement together to make sense of it all. And it's been clunky for a lot of people to start. So I know that you're not the agency itself, so you're not always seeing all the media spend, but I'm sure you're engaged with them and hear a lot of it from the agencies and brands you work with. But what are you seeing as far as results go now for influencer marketing campaigns? And has that been growing in return rate, or has it been stagnant? What are you sort of seeing as far as the mix of what's happening with that marketing?
Yeah, we're seeing more and more media dollars flowing into influencer marketing. And the main driver there is measurement. Think about Facebook back in the day when you used to buy Facebook and you couldn't really measure Facebook very well. And so marketers were saying, okay, I'll put some money into Facebook, but I'm not going to put all my money into it because I can't measure it. Well, then once Facebook was like, hey, we can measure these things really, really well. We can tell you how many sales you've done. We can retarget people as well. Marketers like, I'm going to dump all my money into that because it's measurable and it actually works. We're seeing now that the same thing with influencer marketing. And ultimately, as you think about like what happened with COVID and everyone's consumption of social media, all eyes are on social media. The only two ways to be on social media, well, really, there's three ways. One, I can create content on my own channel as a brand. And we know that brand performance content usually sucks. It's not very good, right? Influencer content is, 3 to 7 times better engaged than a brand's own content. So I can either put content on my own channel on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, whatever. I can buy ads on social media, which is super efficient, effective, works really well, but it's ubiquitous and anonymous and, or I can buy influencer, right? And I can hire them because it's more word of mouth marketing. And what marketers found is that is a much more effective way to get conversion when you as a friend. So Kenneth, now you and I are friends. I trust you when it comes to shark diving. Guess what? When I go shark diving, I'm calling you to find out where I should go, right? And that's influencer marketing. So we've seen the dollars keep flowing into influencer marketing. But again, a lot of it's just all about measurement and being able to measure it. And I think that, what's really interesting going forward is in the past, it's been very difficult to have audience visibility into identifiable individuals, of an influencer's audience. And that's kind of what media has already done. And so we talk about this term influencer as media. And it's really about how do you turn influencer into media, where I can do the same things with my Facebook ads that I can do with influencer marketing. And it really comes down to being able to identify individuals within a influencer's audience. So, again, that kind of leads more towards measurement, and that's where the dollars are going to flow.
At least from the conversations you're having with agencies and brands, what are they pulling money out of typically? If it's not an increased budget, which a lot of them haven't always grown up, they're pulling it from somewhere. Do you generally hear a sense of where they're pulling it from? Is it less on social, less on display ads, less on TV ads, whatever it is, to pour into influencer marketing?
It's definitely depending on the brand, right, and the industry that they're in. There are some very traditional brands where TV works really well for them, and it still does. We are seeing, obviously, this is nothing new. We're seeing a lot of budgets being pulled from TV, video, print is pretty much, for the most part, kind of gone. So we're seeing a lot of those budgets coming into just digital by themselves. And then when you start to look at who controls the media budgets within an agency or a brand, where that's coming from, a lot of times we're going to be being pulled from social, right? So your Facebook ads, your Instagram ads, and then it pulls from a greater digital campaign as well. So
what is growing with the technology trends that you're seeing today with the advances you've had in your platforms and what you're seeing in the industry as a whole?
Yeah, there's two pieces. There's the really fun, shiny coins that everyone wants to go towards, right? Which are fascinating, interesting. And then there's more of the mundane things that I get excited about, that our clients get excited about, and that's workflow efficiency. So, when we think about what we do, workflow efficiency is at the key, because a lot of our clients are hiring 1,000 influencers per campaign. It's that scale. And so you just need a really sophisticated tool that allows you to hire that scale, measure it efficiently. But I also, think that audience building is the most important thing, because we always say when you're hiring an influencer, you're not hiring an influencer, you're hiring the audience. So the more I can understand the audience, the interests of those audiences, the sentiment of those audiences. Yes, we can understand the demographics and geolocation. Those things are kind of table stakes at this point. But it's really being able to hone in on the interest. But most importantly, if I go and hire an audience, I want to know and have, certainty that audience is going to have propensity to want to engage with my content and buy my product. And so it's those predictable analytics, kind of the AI analytics that we're adding into the platform constantly, to be able to have a bit more certainty that this group is going to buy based off of, key metrics.
When they're using your platform, how do you keep a customer coming back after they've managed well or not managed well a campaign? Because again, it's not like this is all predictable. And we've said this, but there's been a lot of campaigns flounder, and a lot that you thought would have floundered would have succeeded in all forms of media execution. This is so new to a lot of people, though, it sometimes scares people away after they stick their toe in the water.
Sure. We don't think about our platform, for example, as this kind of like, hey, I need to come there when I'm running a campaign. This isn't always on platform, because again, we're tracking 550,000 brands around the world. Your competitors are always putting content in market, whether that's being paid or it's organic. A lot of times influencers are creating content for you or your competitors, and you have no idea that it's actually happening. So that is a wealth of content, a wealth of information that you can actually start to look at and be like, oh, I start to see trends within organic content within my industry. Those are trends that I might want to hop onto or build campaigns around. Or, one of my competitors is having a huge push in Texas amongst this group of people. Great. That's something I need to identify. Is that a type of campaign I want to build into? Or are we starting to get already enough organic mentions? I was looking at Nike recently. It's so cool. Nike, if you look at Nike, Adidas, Puma, Under Armour, Nike has a 95% share of voice in Texas. Okay. Whether you're looking at gross number of points or posts, or you're looking at like earned media value, engagements, whatever it is, they own a 95% share of voice. And when you look through it and you see it's all organic, what does that tell Nike? They don't need to spend a dime in Texas because they already have all the organic mentions there. Puma, Adidas, Under Armour, what does that tell them? They need to start hiring influencers in Texas in order to increase their share of voice amongst the social community, right? So that's the type of information that you could spend the next month on, just constantly looking at and understanding these trends within your industry. So again, it's not really about just campaigns that you're running. It's really about, we've listened to and stored 15 billion posts. I mean, every day we listen to another 40 million posts. I mean, it's astronomical, right? But all of that data is just constantly changing. So it's not just about like, am I running a campaign today? It's about what's happening in my world.
We've talked a lot about brands and agencies and the state of the state and the platform and the advancements. I'm kind of curious, what's your advice? Because I'm sure people come to you, that through different channels. What's your advice to an influencer today to be recognized well and noticed by brands as they build their own level of influence?
Definitely. I love this. And I work with a lot of influencers. So they'll come to me, and especially when they're early on, just trying to say, hey, how do I become recognizable? And I always start to say, well, what brands do you want to work with? Okay. And they say, well, I want to work with Levi's, or I want to work with Ray-Bans, or whoever it is. And then I start to look at the campaigns on our platform that they're running and who are they going after? And do you look like those types of people? A lot of times when you're starting off, you're not really focused on a particular demographic. And so you'll find that your audience is half men, half women. They live all over the place, right? Not as appealing to most brands, right? They want a very specific audience. So try to hone in on that craft. Why are the men following you? Why are the women following you? Pick and choose one, and then create content around that group. Okay. So, the more you can be specific, the better you are. And the more kind of engaged audiences that you're going to attract. And then, the same thing with the algorithms. Start to look at the algorithms. They've done a really good job in the last couple of years of really recommending content based off of what you have interest in. And so if I'm an influencer who creates just a wide range of content, I might not be delivered my recommendation to specific people who are really interested in these kind of niche things. So again, just the more niche you can be, the better.
Agreed. And I think we spoke about this briefly before, but I'm coaching a lot of influencers now who are trying to build their brands beyond just that Bang energy drink deal they got because they had a few followers. And I think it's absolutely fascinating to see where the next level of what they do with their career, how they take their own thing if they don't become an ongoing Charli D'Amelio and they don't become a Ryan Kaji. I mean, it's really interesting to see how they're going to learn from the business world to go beyond just a few brand deals. It's a lot of exciting things to come, but it's also probably going to see a lot of failures go through that realm as well. So,
yeah, and there are millions of brands out there, right? I mean, what's cool about what we kind of do, you can look at an influencer and you can look at their audiences and start to understand their audience's affinity in different brand categories through our platform. So, for example, you can be like, all right, I want to look at this influencer and I want to look at all their food and beverage brands that their audience cares about, or I want to look at their fashion. You can even go and see the aviation brands that their audiences care about, the car brands. That just opens up the whole world of brands to influencers, where they can start to say, oh, I can start to go into the aviation space, or I can go into this space if your audience makes sense for that category, right? So, yeah.
Well, what excites you the most today about influencer marketing that maybe we haven't just talked about, and what gives you the most pause about the industry as well?
Yeah, I mean, two things that I think that are really interesting is this influencer is media. So once influencer becomes the same way that you can buy media, I think that's really interesting. Being able to identify individual people within the influencer's audiences is just going to change the way we're doing business. We're already starting to do that with some clients now. I think that's interesting. The other thing that makes me really excited is the need for content. You have to, as a brand, be creating content all the time. And if you're not creating content all the time, you almost don't exist on social media or even in the e-commerce world, email marketing, whatever it is, you need content. Content is expensive, right? For me to create an Instagram post, it's typically $300 for a brand. Well, now we're seeing a lot of the campaigns being run in our platform have nothing to do with attribution, has nothing to do with awareness. It's all about, I need 40 pieces of content for $200. Who can do that for me? So that to me is influencer marketing at scale, where brands can start to create all this content, and then you can take that content and really A/B test that, whether it's in your email marketing campaign or on your e-commerce website. So what I'm excited about influencer marketing, everyone thinks about it's all about just like, creating a post for this influencer to drive something. It's not that anymore. It's about how do I create content at scale using influencers who matter. And since they're so, up on the trends, they know what kind of content's going to resonate with those audiences way better than a brand can. I mean, you look at these influencers that have 600,000 followers. Why do they do that? They do it because they know how to create content. Brands just don't know how to create content that's that compelling. So,
is there any big negative or concern that you have within influencer marketing?
Not really. I mean, I think that it's a traditional.
Just so we make sure it doesn't become a fad.
Yeah, I just don't think it is a fad. I mean, my wife is so funny. She's like, listen, I love what you're doing. Congratulations. But like this influencer marketing thing, come on. And I'm like, give me your phone. I'm like, you follow like 50 influencers. She's like, no, I like that person because she's a decorator. She's an influencer.
Exactly.
Yeah. And so I don't think this is a fad. If we think that word of mouth marketing, whether it's online or between your friends, is going to go away at some point, then it's a fad. I just don't believe that. I think that I'm always going to take your advice, Kenneth, when I'm going to go shark diving. Just, you know more about it than I do, and I'm going to take your advice, and that's influencer marketing.
Yeah, I think my biggest concern is trying to figure out how well influencers continue to educate themselves to help in that, as what you said, in a sort of a complex media execution, really understanding how to help, just like any performance marketer would, how to make the C-suite and the CFO in particular happy with the money that they allocated towards there beyond just a vanity metric or a direct sale only. There's value there that has to be quantified to some degree. The emotion we'll get from a lot of the vanity metrics, but really being understand its unique value in the marketplace and not comparing it to a banner ad or something they created on their own or whatever it is. It's a different form of content, a different form of media execution that needs to be thought of well. So Pete, I asked this of all my guests, and I must ask, since you're close to Santa Monica and the waters there, what is your favorite kind of shark and why? You're a surfer.
I am a surfer. So my favorite shark is an oceanic white tip shark.
Yeah, not nearly enough of them have been decimated.
They're being decimated, and they're cool looking fin and those things. If you see one in the ocean, they're basically hunting in the middle of nowhere, and if it sees you, it will probably want to eat you. So,
well, I wouldn't say that, but their populations have declined by like 93% in the last 15 years. It's deplorable. And that's part of the problem is they run into a lot of commercial fishing because of where they sit at the top of the water column, close to where a lot of the commercial longline fishing boats, and then they just end up getting decimated for their fins, or they become bycatch. And that was probably TMI that you didn't need to know, but it was just.
No, I know all that.
Yeah.
I love sharks. I've been studying sharks since I was a little kid. But the other thing is it's probably the most sought after fin within shark soup globally, which is too bad.
It's horrible, but we'll do what we can to help that misunderstanding. Well, Pete, it's that special time of the show. Are you ready for the 5 most interesting, important questions that you're going to be asked today?
That's why I'm doing the show. Let's hear it.
All right. Man, we have set the bar too high. All right. Number 1, Ryan Kaji or a Kardashian? Take your pick, whichever one.
I'll take a Kardashian.
Why so?
I mean, can I marry a Kardashian? Because I want to, I want to tap into the billions. No, I think the Kardashians
they all come with a lot of baggage.
Exactly. No, I think
and some videotapes too, depending on which ones. Yeah.
I think the Kardashians have done an amazing job of not just becoming influencers, but building massive brands around themselves. And honestly, they're super smart people. So
incredibly smart. All right. Number 2, types of influencer campaigns you like the best: giveaway contest or sponsored social posts?
Sponsored social post.
Why so?
Did you say giveaway content?
Giveaway contests.
Oh, contests. I hate those. I think those are fake, and they inflate metrics, and they're not real. So
fair enough. Fair enough. All right. Number 3, TikTok or Instagram?
Oh man, I'm gonna get in trouble for this. Okay. I can only answer one time. Okay, I'll say TikTok. TikTok's entertainment.
It's the best user interface of any social platform ever for killing time and just enjoying yourself.
The best recommendation engine ever. Yeah.
All right. Number 4, since we were talking about surfing and the California surf spots near you, Huntington Beach or Newport Beach?
Ooh, I would say Newport because the wedge is so fun.
All right. Number 5, and the most important question that you're going to be asked today is biscuits or cornbread?
thought about this a lot because I've heard this in the past, and I'm gonna go. I don't like sugar, so I'm gonna go biscuit. It's more versatile. You can eat it with anything.
That's fair. That's fair.
Am I right? Am I wrong?
Go to Cracker Barrel where you can get two. I don't know if there are any Cracker Barrels in Santa Monica, but you get both when you go to Cracker Barrel.
I'm from Indiana. I've been to many. I have never met a cornbread I didn't like, but
Yeah.
it's not very good for you.
All right. Well, Pete, where can people find out more about you, keep up with Tagger Media, and a lot more?
Yeah, check me out on LinkedIn. Also, my email address is peter@taggermedia.com. Feel free to reach out to me. Always open to discussing anything.
Pete, thank you so much for being with us today on A Shark's Perspective.
Thanks, Kenneth. Appreciate it.
So there was my conversation with Peter Kennedy, the founder and president of Tagger, a data-driven influencer marketing platform. Let's take a look at 3 key takeaways from our conversation with him. First, to his point about the rise of influencer marketing, where and when it was growing steadily, it skyrocketed in growth during COVID because the pandemic helped people adopt the usage much more widely of social media. So much more. And I say helped, but you can debate that societal issue on your own. But who wanted to hear from brands directly during that time on social? Well, very few people wanted to hear directly from the brands, and influencers fill the gap with how they speak to the use of a product or service versus how brands speak about it. You be the judge on who wins that argument. And he mentions even if we pivot back a point or two on social media usage, it still is advanced well beyond where it should have been expected to be at this time. And that's, again, good news for influencer marketing and its adoption. Second, love when he talks about what makes a great influencer, and that's changed dramatically over the last decade. The Kardashian model is the one that many still think of first, but it isn't the right model for many businesses. Many marketers still overthink reach versus targeted to their specific audience. Pete likes that influencer campaigns with targeted audiences are more predictable and that niche is easier to identify. It's also easier to craft that audience. Awareness campaigns often need to go bigger. However, smarter marketers know to be very specific and target further. He said, and I quote, "A good influencer has a very concentrated audience." And that's so very true. Third, it's a difficult media execution is an understatement for many. Vanity metrics are easy to measure, but what drives sales and how does it all tie back to what the brand is doing? Well, that's a whole other difficult execution on its own to measure. He said, though, that the measurement is better today, and that I agree. Measurement still sucks to me, but I do get excited about where the technology is going. When you start looking at an influencer platform with a touch of social listening and a dash of CRM, with some workflow efficiency and a hint of this platform or that, and start tying it all together, well, then you can start making the CFO happy, as well as putting out better content that buyers often want. And you also make this shark a little happier. That's exciting stuff, and I'm glad to see technologies like Tagger moving that forward. Helps the industry, and it's going to continue to change the way we do marketing, and that's a good thing. Got a question? Send me an email to kenneth@asharksperspective.com. Thank you again for the privilege of your time. I'm so thankful to everybody who listens. Be curious, be fearless, and dive deeper. And today, be extra influential. And join us on the next episode of A Shark's Perspective.